Michaela. Today we're going to be making a dress from a PDF pattern. Now, I have a background in pattern making and PDF patterns kind of fascinate me. Like, I don't understand how you fit everything on A4 pieces of paper and then like put it together like a little puzzle. So yeah, I bought one on Etsy. I found this really cool designer. It was super cheap. She had amazing reviews, so I will show you her Etsy page. So this is the store. This is THISISKACHI. I apologize if I say it wrong. And this is the dress. Super cute. And it's $12.90, but it's currently on sale for 25% off, $9.69, which is an absolute steal. She has really good reviews. People have said, like, I got over 2,000 likes on social media after making this dress. Everyone's added photos, like, looks stunning. So we are gonna try and make this beautiful number. Now, she does have a YouTube channel and she's got all of the how-to on there. There's obviously a digital download, so you purchase, download, print, stick it together like a little puzzle. She's got it without seam allowance, which is very interesting, but I guess it's a personal preference. You can put your own seam allowance on. I normally sew with 1 centimeter. Some people prefer more, but yeah. She recommends a thicker fabric and it is for personal, non-commercial use only, which is totally fair because I'm sure she put a lot of bloody time into this. So we have our PDF printout here. Definitely read this before you start. Now she tells you how much fabric, what zip, elastic, etc. Cutting instructions, and a size guide. Now I have worked out that I'm a size medium in her pattern, and yeah, let's just cut it out and put it together. If I had have read the instructions before, I could have just made my own circle skirt, but that's fine. Okay, so I found the size guide. There's more sizes than what was on my printout. So I can establish that medium is the third line in, which is great. So I'm just gonna mark that so that I don't get confused. So 1, 2, 3. This is our line. And we need to add seam allowance. I got it. Okay, we have all of our pieces cut. A bit of a wobbly skirt situation, but now it's time to choose fabric. So we need 2 meters of relatively thick. Hey, this could be really cute. Okay, potential. Near cotton mix. What do we feel? Too thin. That one could work too. So we have maybe cotton sateen or a silky baby. I'm gonna have to fold this up again, which is annoying, but could be cute. I think we go with the blue. Yep. Let's do it. So I started off by measuring my fabric to make sure that I did have enough for this project. Once I folded my fabric over and laid out my skirt piece, I realized that this was not going to work. So after a little bit of brain power, I decided to cut up the slit and use that as a separate pattern piece. So it was sewn a little bit differently to the instructions, but I made it fit on my fabric width. Now, I didn't cut it on the fold because I was pretty tight on fabric. I believe it was supposed to be 2.5 meters and I only had 2. So I just measured off the selvage edge to the straight grain to make sure that it was cut correctly. And I'm lazy, so I use a marker and then cut out my pieces. Looks good so far. And of course you have to have a little bit of a boogie. So now I'm just cutting out the skirt piece and the bodice pieces following my trace line. And because I didn't cut it on the fold, I have to flip my pattern pieces over the opposite way so I can have a matching pair. So again, just measuring off the straight grain to the selvage edge, marking it out and then cutting. And now I am just making sure that I do have the correct pieces and pairs, matching them up. And of course you have to choose a matching thread color. And then I started by sewing all of the bodice pieces together. This isn't really a tutorial, it's just kind of like a time-lapse compilation. Hello! Of course, you have to press your seams. This is an absolute game changer for sewing. Don't be lazy, definitely iron. I'm ironing both sides to make sure we have a very crisp finish. And now I'm sewing the cups. This is just a gathering stitch. I've got backstitched at the end and done my widest stitch length, which is a 4 on my machine. I backstitched so that you don't lose it, but when you get to the other end, you need to make sure that you leave it open. Do not backstitch, otherwise you won't be able to pull your gathers through. So here I'm just pulling the top thread and leaving the bottom thread, and that's how you're gonna get a nice gather. It was at this point that I decided I wanted to line my dress. So I found a lovely blue fabric that was a matching color and just repeated the process. So measuring from the straight grain on my pieces to the selvage edge, making sure that they are the same so that we cut it straight, putting a little weight on there and tracing over so that I can cut it out. And basically same process, except I'm sewing all the bodice pieces of the lining instead. Again, giving it a solid steam. Here I am just measuring out my bias strips for the ties at the front of the bodice. Hello kitty cat. It's cut on a 45-degree angle. You can see I have a little square there. And I've marked from either edge. So across from one corner to the other corner in a 90 right angle square is your 45-degree angle, which is your bias. And here I did not realize that I had run out of bobbin thread. And watching this video back makes me very sad because it is so long and I do not know how I didn't realize. Ah! There it is. Realizing that it's empty. So doing a bobbin wind on my industrial machine is a little bit different. So I have to pop the foot off and pull the thread out of the needle, and then I can wind my bobbin. So we're just starting again, stitching down the bias strips. And if you don't know what this is, go to your local craft store, sewing store, and get yourself a loop turner. Another absolute game changer. So once you feed it through, there's this little hook. You can catch the end of the fabric and pull it in on itself. This will save you so much time. This is a handy trick I learned when I was doing my pattern making course. So for bias strips, if you pin one end to your board and use a crap load of steam whilst pulling. You can round it off here as well with your fingers, but definitely use heaps of steam. Give it a really, really solid pull and you'll end up with a nice bias strip. Now I'm just sewing the bodice pieces of the cups together and top stitching the channel for that tie to go into. And back to my trusty loop turner. We're going to use that to feed through our bias strips. And instead of turning it in on itself, I'm going to hook onto my strips on the end there and pull it through that way. So giving it a good solid yank to get through the last bit, because I didn't sew this right at all. I was just winging it and I should have read the instructions, but it turned out okay in the end. It's just a little bit of finesse. Now I'm attaching the bodice to the cups, and in hindsight I should have sewn both the body fabric and the lining fabric in one, but I hand stitched it later. And before you sew anything, if you pin it, make sure that it is actually correct, because it's so much easier to change your pins than to unstitch and restitch. I had safety pinned the ends of the straps to the side so that they didn't slide when I did my stitch. And now it's time to choose elastic. This is going on the sleeves. So these are my sleeve strips. I've previously cut and overlocked the edge. And here I'm measuring out my elastic and checking that it fits my arm. Yes, I'm wearing a dressing gown. If you don't sew in your dressing gown, who are you kidding? So I'm just using the two pieces, fold them next to each other so you can cut the exact same length. And if you don't have a cheeky bev whilst you're sewing either, then who are you? So I pin the edge of the elastic to the edge of my fabric, and as you will see in a moment, this didn't work quite well. And then I realized, why is it so loose? And it's because the elastic had slipped halfway. So here we go, unpick. If you didn't know you could do this with your unpicker, bless you. So poke the hole with the little ball in the interior of your seam and just shoop, slide it along. So now I'm cutting my elastic a little bit shorter, matching up with the other one to make sure that we have two identical pieces. And now I am measuring the center of my fabric and also the center of my elastic. So I can match them up, and when I sew, it'll be evenly spread. So I'm pinning the center of my elastic to the center of my fabric. And now pulling as I go. Of course, you gotta have some tunes. But here I'm just checking on Etsy on the listing to see what this actually looks like, because I wasn't too sure and I wanted to just confirm. I still did it differently, but it's fine. So it's looking at the sleeves being like, wait, what? Am I doing this right? And now I'm just hemming the bottom edge of the sleeve, folding it over on itself twice. With this sort of fabric, I find it kind of folds without needing to press. You can sort of finger press it. And I'm marking from the bottom hem up to where the elastic ruffle will be, all the way along at the same distance so that I can match my elastic up to those edges. And the same process, marking the center of my fabric and the center of my elastic. And pinning that in place. And as always, once you've sewn something, just check to make sure that it's right, because it's easier to fix now than later. So we're just finishing off the sleeve seam. Once I straight stitch that, I will also overlock it. And now we're on to attaching the lining to the bodice. So I left the cups open and just did the sides and also top stitched the lining. I don't know why I hand stitched this, it's just I felt like hand stitching with this project, so I'm just pinning over the excess seam allowance and I'm going to go through with my needle and stitch that down in place. Sometimes mistakes happen. You can see here that I caught a little bit of the hem, but it's all good. So I previously overlocked the skirt seams together and then went in with the straight stitch. This is ironing open the split at the front and also the seams. And now I'm attaching the bodice to the skirt. It's the center back opening, pinning it in place and matching up all of my seams. And once you've pinned it in place, make sure that it looks okay before you sew. And that looks pretty good. And I don't know why, but I had to rethread this portion of my machine. Onto the zipper. Zips used to terrify me, but they're not scary at all. So I'm just going along the very edge first before I sew the invisible zip. This just helps to keep it in place. So I'm going the whole way down on both sides. And so now I've just changed my normal sewing foot to my invisible zipper. Folding the top edge of the zip down and then going really close to the fold. You can see with an invisible zip, you can kind of fold the edge over and stitch really, really close. And I am just zipping her up to make sure that it is all good. And unfortunately, I realized there's a little dodgy bit. So now I have pinned the lining across here. You could stitch it by machine, but again, I don't know why, I just was really into hand sewing this at the moment. So I'm just stitching along the zipper edge and also along the waist to secure the lining. And now I'm overlocking the bottom hem of the skirt. This helps with hems. If you overlock the raw edge, it's easier to fold it over itself and do a nice hem. So now I am ironing the hem, folding it over itself twice. So now I am just stitching the double-welled hem of the skirt. And we are out of bobbin thread again. Whoa, first go, I love when that happens. I also decided that the hem was a little bubbly and I was not vibing it, so I pulled out the thread to start again. So now we're just stitching along the hem edge again, and it's much straighter, and we have a bobbin thread, which is a good start. As always, press your seams. I can't decide if we want to have bows or just a single strap, because you got these guys and that can go up there. I don't know, it might look a bit weird. I don't know, do I want straps? I feel like I need straps. I decided I wanted straps, so here I am hand stitching them on after the fact. So I decided to line my dress. I just thought it was going to give it a really nice finish. Normally I would sew the straps through the lining, but it was an afterthought, so that's why they're there. I'm lazy and didn't change my overlocking thread to white, so it's black. But you can't see that, so that's totally fine. But yeah, she's come out super duper cute. I hand stitched this down and also the bottom edge. I could have machined it, but I don't know, I was in a hand sewing mood. Lined the cups as well. I also thought it was just going to be a lot more comfortable. So, I have to do a couple of tweaks. As you can see, I made my straps just a little bit too long. But that's an easy fix. I'll just tuck it in and give it a little stitch. This is the finished dress. And it is super duper cute. I definitely didn't sew it according to the instructions. And I realized after the fact, for example, this bit, totally different. But I think it turned out pretty good. I probably wouldn't say it's for beginners. I mean, I found the PDF pattern thing pretty interesting. Definitely used to making my own or like store-bought ones, so a bit of a process. Would recommend reading all of the instructions before you sew. I skimmed through because I was really excited. And as mentioned, I definitely sewed a few things a little different. Like this, I don't think is the way that she designed it, but I still think it looks cute. Changed a couple of the measurements around and the way that I cut the skirt as well. It's just PDF patterns take a little bit of brain power. So yeah, I would say buy it. If you're into sewing and this is like a super cute on-trend little piece. I think I'm gonna wear this to a friend's wedding, which is exciting because it's already sewn, I don't have to make anything. But yeah. Also, just, you don't have to follow the instructions. I would say read them, but if you do something different and it still works, there's no problem. I think that's totally fine. But anywho, I have a couple more PDF patterns on the way, as well as my series of sewing all of my patterns. That is a different story. That's not PDFs, that's thrifted, vintage, so on. So I'm currently working on video 1. And yeah, if you enjoyed this little sewing vid, please don't forget to like this video. This is so, I'm so uncomfortable saying this. Or don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow my other socials. There's sneak peeks on TikTok. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.